Welcome to Lat B, the only podcast that comes with a free Bandits bonus.
Express delivery included.
Lat B, where MMA and UFC get silly. This is the Lat B podcast.
Welcome back. Thanks for sticking with us. There has been a little bit of a delay. It is summer vacation out here. It has been the holidays here in the land of the free and the home of the brave. And we had a heck of a card with UFC 239 that we went over. Because we have been on a little bit of a hiatus, we're going to push all of that Twitterverse stuff, all of our predictions, all of that stuff to the end of our show. We're going to get...
Our predictions we're going to talk about right now.
Well, our former predictions for 239.
We're just going to talk about, we'll recap 239 and Twitterverse at the end.
Correct. Yeah. But we're going to try to get into it. How have you been getting ready for this Sac Town card?
It's been a long time. Sacramento's not getting it up for me. I am barely excited about it. I feel a little fight burnout from how great the fights were last week.
I totally agree.
I even feel like the fights were so good, I didn't really even have anything to say about it. I didn't have it made me speechless. It was a speechless night of fights.
It definitely had me winning off my bank account growing heavily. I know yours did as well because, again, if you listen.
I really just broke even.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I feel like DK slaying it, Bet slaying it, all over the place. If you're sticking around at Zol tonight, at Weak Neck Baby, you're going to be getting some sort of betting information out there. Also at Lesbo and the Bean. Be sure to follow us on Twitter. Follow us on, subscribe on that YouTube and stuff. There is also renovations going around town. We have the studio still being renovated. So if you hear any clunking around up there, there's only so much we can do for you guys at this point in time.
I know, I don't think they'll hear it.
I sure hope so.
Yeah, I don't think they'll hear it at all. I feel like we make mention to a lot of stuff and they don't hear it.
It doesn't transfer over.
We tell them,
it drives me crazy. It drives me absolutely crazy.
The only thing I'm sure you can hear is that bird.
He hits that high tone.
We need to change the dog to a bird on here. Our logo should be an African gray because he likes to, and he warms up. He just chills, silent as a church mouse. And then all of a sudden he hears, welcome back. And he's like, whoa!
Time to get on.
Whoa!
Time to go. So it's definitely been hectic time here, but we were able to do the tape study. We were able to find the content. We got money to be made coming up here in Sac-Town, Sacramento. We're going to have a 12-card bout. You know how we do. We always start from the bottom to the top, and it's not going to change from here. I feel like the narrative here, the thing that I'm seeing on everything is Team Alpha Male versus the world. We got like 28 alpha male guys on this card. It's unbelievable. All right, maybe a little less than that, but here we're going to start it off with Benito Lopez.
There's only one good alpha male guy.
There's a couple. There's a couple in there.
Song.
True. That's
my good alpha male guy.
There's a couple more. I think we're going to be able to get into them with Benito Lopez versus Vince Morales at bantamweight, 135 pounds. Benito Lopez coming out of that alpha male scene. I think they're going by Team Alpha as well now. I just heard abbreviated. How do you feel about that?
I think it's actually a really smart way to get ahead of it. Especially since, for all intents and purposes, I know hardcores are going to hate to hear this, but Paige Van Zandt probably brought more eyes to the camp than any one of the other fighters put together.
I agree with that.
So they should change it.
That swimsuit illustrated expose really ended up helping her out there. That went viral for a while.
Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition. I know it's so old school. It's like when she was on the cover of Maxim. It's like such an old magazine. We're like, what's the name of it again? A magazine? What's that?
Exactly.
Also, Dancing with the Stars. I think that was probably...
true. She was at Alpha Male when that was happening, so that is a good point. So, wow, that's how much we have to talk about at 135 pounds. Vince Morales coming in with a 9-3 record, getting a spotty record in there in the UFC, losing his debut to Yadong Song in a decision, which doesn't look so bad 7 months ago. Then, as of late, coming in and beating Ayman Zahabi in a decision 2 months ago over there in Canada. He was an underdog there and really showed that his well-roundedness, good gas tank, and good chin in there are able to take him far into a fight. All around, he's a serviceable fighter. Nothing really sticks out. Good, clean boxing, orthodox fighter coming out of the American free fight MMA scene out of Oregon, Ontario. serviceable young man at 28 years old. There's nothing that really stuck out to me. Against Benito Lopez, he's going to have to use his wrestling. The 9-1 fighter's coming off of his first loss ever to Manny Bermudez in a submission. Benito Lopez got cracked there. Eventually, he ended up getting guillotine choked after he shot in, but Benito was starting to finally get exposed a little bit. He had a bit of hype from coming off of the Contender Show, getting a lot of finishes. Alpha male, if we're talking about the narrative, we also have to say that out of that Sacktown scene, Alpha male is notoriously being known to give their fighters beneficial fights. So when they've been fighting at Team Alpha Male and have 9 wins in a row, they might not be the best competition, and that chin finds a way to get you in the door in the UFC. So we have seen a little bit of exploitation now on Benito Lopez. His gas tank is a little compromised. He throws a lot of flashy kicks and stuff, and submissions he was able to get away with on the regional scene don't seem to be working as well now that he's fighting at level competition. But he's also a young man at 25 years old. He's got a lot of shoring up to do, but he has more potential, I feel like, out of the both fighters, because he does have that flash KO potential about him. He can be reckless at times, but I think that some of these first losses for these guys is where we see their biggest growth. So I do think after 4 months, he didn't get absolutely finished in there. I think he can grow here. I got Benito Lopez as a slight underdog here. We usually tell you guys to stay away from the first fight of the night. I think that stays here. This is a close one. I'm picking an underdog. Who do you have?
I can't believe it because 77% of Tapology thinks Lopez is going to win as well. So it's weird that he is an underdog on this fight. And I think it's actually the right on odds. I don't care what everyone says. I think people are picking him because of his hair. It's so ridiculous. It's like this extra hype. Vince Morales is just a little better everywhere. This is also going to be I think Benito Lopez is one of those guys that's way too tall for the weight class. And he's about at the age where it's going to start becoming a problem that he makes weight every time. So the cut takes a more drastic toll on him. Plus, he's what's a guy this tall doing at Alpha Male? It doesn't even logically make sense. What's he just fighting a bunch of Chad Mendez's?
He's like he's like a basketball player in a second grade class.
I don't love his cardio. I don't love his striking. I think Vince Morales kind of outscores him there. I do see that a submission could happen just because of how long and lean Benito Lopez is. I'm going with the favorite, Vince Morales. I'm staying away from this fight. I think it's going to be boring and low scoring.
So it is a minus 130 for Morales against plus 120 for Lopez as the underdog there. On DraftKings, you're going to end up paying $8,500 for Morales against Benito Lopez at $7,700. I don't like a lot of that. Maybe I see the finish more for Lopez here. So a stab at 7-7. It's going to be in that 10 to 20% of my cards is going to be Benito Lopez. Morales, I see him being much more of a decision fighter out of the two. So
I will have 0% and 0%.
That's probably the best move of that fight. On to Renata Souza coming in against Brianna Van Buren. Van Buren coming off of that Invicta scene. She is 8-2. She is coming off of beating Caitlin Curran, who couldn't make it in the UFC, beating Juliana Lima, who also is a drop out of the UFC, and also beating Jamie Moyle, who is no longer in the UFC. So she's had to beat everyone in Invicta that couldn't do it in the UFC, and she was able to get through it. So this should be her actual real test to see if she can stay in the division, and I feel like she's going to be fine. The debut fighter is well-rounded, not tons of power, has a good game plan in there. She's hard-nosed, moves forward, has okay cardio. The submissions she gets against Curran, I can't put that much weight in because that's how you beat Caitlin Curran if you don't want to beat her standing.
The original Khaleesi.
Exactly. But 2 months ago, she ended up getting a rear naked choke against an opponent that you should be able to do that in. So her skills, I just haven't seen her absolutely tested. It is Invicta, the Premier League, to feed women into the UFC, but the 13-1 Souza's coming in with just more of a hard-nosed fight style than Van Buren. Van Buren's gotten a lot of hype as well. And Souza's come in under the radar, beating Alexis Chambers, beating Font, in her last fight. Also, Emma Rose in there in the UFC. But that Font fight she was a big favorite. I think it was over 2-1, and that was a dirty ass split decision. A lot of people had Souza finishing that. She tends to be more of the finisher, a little more looping in her punches, has a stiff left hand looping hook that hurts most women, and on the ground, she's more than serviceable. It's that Fonta style. Fonta came in on a week's notice, and she went to a dirty ass split in a really hard fight with Souza. Souza did score well, but her gas tank really, really lacks in there in that third round. But with the amount of output that she throws, it makes a little more sense to me. Where Bruen, she's fighting lower level competition and still getting a little worn in there. I am going to pick Souza here, decision. I'm going to end up staying away from this one just because there's intangibles that I just haven't seen at level competition. Souza, I would want to say, has fought better competition, but not really. I mean, I think
I totally disagree. I think they fought like the same level of competition.
Oh,
or maybe even,
that's what I'm saying.
I would actually
it's the
have
same
to say
level.
that Bruen may have fought better competition because there's no all the people Souza's losing to, and even Souza herself. I don't know if she's UFC caliber. So
right.
I am going with Van Buren decision, but I agree with you. I think this is low output and stay away from it. Dirty ass split.
Dirty split. And again, I think you're right on with that low output type of a card. I do think they just kind of grind it out. If there's a finish out of the two, I think it's going to be Souza TKO. Van Buren 8,200 against Souza's 8,000 minus 115, minus 115. This is the epitome of a coin flip. That's why we're splitting it up here.
How little is Van Buren? Like, she literally might be 4'11".
It's true. They might be giving her an inch in there as well. So the size, I think, might also play out for Souza a little bit there. But again, there's too many intangibles. For A2, you're going to be able to move money around somewhere else. I do think that goes to a decision. That's going to probably be the play there. So
I think if you could bet on dirty split, that's what you bet on with this.
That's a great call.
Parlay at dirty split.
Dirty split. Moving on to 135 pounds, we're going to have Yan Lu against Jonathan Martinez. Martinez coming in with a 10-2 record, only losing to Matt Schnell out of the UFC, and Sokhamthath, the Asian sensation himself, which you're losing to the Asian sensation. What does that say about you? It was a short notice replacement, and he ended up getting tuned up a little bit in there. But his gas tank wasn't there against Wuji Buren. The decision 5 months ago, he just really showed his American wrestling, was able to get the fight where he wanted to against a Chinese fighter, and showed good ground and pound, good at distance striking against the lesser strikers, so can't really take much away from that. But against Lu in here, he's a 15-4 fighter. He has won his debut in the UFC against Martin Day, or not his debut, he beat Stasiak in a decision, and then Martin Day. Both of those fighters are no longer in the UFC. I actually think Stasiak is a harder fight than Day was, and that was a dirty split. But Lu has been training at 26 years old.
I'm having a feeling already going through these. A lot of people are going to be getting their walking papers after this.
I totally agree with this.
It's like we only need one of each of these kind of fighters. So
right? This is a really hard betting type of card. The lines are really close, and there's intangibles in here. But this young fighter at 26 years old, he's also fighting out of Team Alpha Male, being one of those Chinese signed fighters. So he's training with Yadong Song, Uriah Faber, and that whole other crew, Emmett, Filli. We got a lot of them on here. So this is another one coming in with a good game plan. But the wrestling for Lu has been where he's been making most of his money as well. So it's going to be kind of a wrestler versus wrestler. Striking wise, Lu has more power, but I don't think as good of a fighter. I feel like he's getting a little bit of rub off of Yadong Song and the Alpha Male crew, and I don't know if he's necessarily there. I have Lu decision right now, but I think Martinez can hold his own everywhere. I think this is another dirty-ass split. I want to take a shot on Martinez, but I think I'm going to stick with Lu. Give me a dirty split. I'm going to probably stay away from this one. I see a decision type of fight here. I just think on the feet, neither one is going to want to get there, and they're just going to be rolling on the ground. I think Lu might have a slight advantage, but I think I don't know. I got to watch weigh-ins on this one. I could go to Martinez. It's on the tip of my tongue.
I was right on the fence, and then when you told me Lou was alpha male, Martinez decision.
But with that, they're alpha male in Sacramento, California.
I don't know if that matters.
The judges don't matter with that?
Maybe the judges, but I feel like there could be just as much hate in Sacramento for alpha male because they're one of a lot of schools in California. So it's not, they might not just go with a hometown. They might be like, that's not Dom's, that's not AKA, or that's not Dom, that's not Alliance. You know, like, I don't know. Uriah Faber is unlikable to me. He is a hacky pop song. He is unlikable. The camp's unlikable. I know I'm an alpha male hater. That is where I'm leaning. Martinez is just the dirtier grinder with more of a skill set, and I don't know nothing about Lou. Martinez decision, I probably won't go. The more I'm getting into this, the more I'm thinking, it's not going to be a heavy night for me. I'm going to be saving it for maybe next week or something.
Definitely, we have still 5 other weeks in a row after this, so there's money to be made as well. Contender Series fights have been going on Dana White Contender Series. Ton of underdogs came through there. We don't really play those as far as the fans give you guys tips and stuff, maybe once in a while, but fun
But
fights.
you're always watching because a lot of that info you do bring when we're breaking them down later on. So.
100%. And man, there was some fun finishes in that one. On DraftKings, the slight favorite, minus 160, Lou is going to be 8,700 against Martinez's plus 130, 7,500. I kind of am seeing a dogger pass play there for me. I really think that 8,700 against an actual serviceable fighter like Martinez is too much. I don't see myself playing there. Lou anywhere. If anything, it's going to be Martinez, but again, 10% if that on Martinez. Woo! This is a dirty fight. This is a dirty fight card. Dirty fight card coming out of Sac Town.
And don't you feel like they've solidified, California does get a few cards a year, but they've solidified their California fan base, like they know it's saturated, so it's like they're barely fucking trying. This card is so lackluster to me down to the main event.
I didn't say it, but yeah, I agree.
I think it's BS. Neither of those women have learned main event place. And they're like, neither. I don't even know how anyone could think they have. I know Jermaine has been there before, but she did zero with it. She actually almost squashed a whole division. She created all this unnecessary turmoil. And all she had to do was be like, I don't want to fight Chris Cyborg. Like, I'm not giving up my title. I don't want to fight her. I'll fight Holly for whatever. She fought Holly. Right. She could have fought all the rung of other people. It was all just like a Cyborg setup. I don't know.
Save it. We'll get there. We'll get there. We're getting there.
This fight card, the deeper, I actually do like the next fight.
Yeah, it's a fun one. Yeah. It's actually a showcase fight. Here at 145 pounds, we're going to have 2 alpha male fighters in
How's that even
Darren
possible?
Elkens versus Uriah Hall. I think Hall has...
Ryan Hall.
Ryan Hall.
That would be awesome. Uriah Hall, I got it. I'm going heavy on Uriah
Ryan Hall is at TriStar, but he did spend time with alpha male. Remember that TJ knocked him out and almost retired him off of a late knee in the training room?
Did he break his jaw or something?
Didn't break it, but he gave him a concussion where he had to drop out of a fight and then never really came back from it until beating BJ Penn, the 7-1 fighter.
I didn't know either of these fighters fought at alpha male.
Oh yeah, the damage. Elkens has been there for a little while now. He probably, I want to say 4 to 5 years ago, he came from American Top Team, but was a Midwest fighter prior to that. Back to Hall though, 7-1 fighter. He's won 3 in a row, losing only on the show in a majority decision. In his actual UFC tenure, he beat the GOAT, Artem Lobov. He beat Gray Maynard in a decision, and last submitting BJ Penn in a Imanari roll outside reap to a heel hook. BJ was lost in there. That's not really a win. He was a huge favorite. Of course, we saw that was going to happen, but some of that steam I feel like is still holding around for Hall, and Darren Elkens by far has fought the much steeper competition, had much more brutal fights. Back to Hall real quick. We know what he wants to do nonstop. Getting it to the ground. He likes to get in those 50-50 positions. Look for heel hooks. Get a lot of positive positions. If you really like fun thing to break down, Jack Slack just had a piece on YouTube about Uriah Hall's and in his transitions and stuff. Fun little piece there. But standing, he spams his kicks because he's one of these guys that's like, yeah, go ahead and grab my leg, take me down. Because no matter what on the ground, I'm going to have an advantage. and that works to an extent. But once he gets higher into the echelons, I feel like guys are going to start to take him down, and I could see potentially some side hammer fists, some guys able to stifle potentially some of this heel hook stuff. It's whether Darren Elkins can do that, because the game plan the alpha male fighter is going to have to do, coming off of a 24-7 record, losing his last 2 in a row to Alexander Volkanovski and Ricardo Lamas in a TKO 7 months ago. Darren Elkins, the damage himself, has really started to feel it. He's had a hard-fought career, had nothing but fight of the year contender fights in there, and I think the veteran 35-year-old fighter, it's just, in that Lamas fight, Lamas looked all sorts of good, where he hasn't looked as good after that Elkins fight. So it's just, you could really see that accumulation. He wasn't able to take the body shots, and if you're really paying attention, you're going to see those. But Ryan Hall has none of that. He is not a stand-up striker. He only throws spam kicks to try to get to the ground, and Elkins has the type of wrestling to be able to keep it where he wants it striking, win on the striking levels, but if he gets to the ground one time, Hall has the type of submissions to be able to finish it. I think they're both live for the finish here. Darren Elkins is finished. Bektic in there. He's got a few finishes. It's usually that gas tank, and Hall doesn't have the best gas tank as well. So the later this fight goes, the better it is for Elkins. But I do think that Hall finds a way to get it into that second round, get him on the ground, and I do think it's going to be some sort of a leg submission, heel hook, or knee reap somewhere in there. Give me submission round number 2. Hall. I'm tentative on this one. I'm excited. This is a really, really interesting matchup. Really interesting.
I kind of think Ryan Hall isn't even close to the caliber of fighter that the other of these guys are. He is almost a guy that I feel like has had gimme fights since the beginning of his UFC. The BJ Penn is not even, that might as well have been Eddie Bravo submission challenge. Like, that was not a UFC fight. And we've been trying to retire BJ for years now. And then before that, 2 years, 7 months, Gray Maynard. It's like, ugh, that is pretty. And then to boot, Artem Lobov. If you went to decision with Artem Lobov, Darren Elkins is going to chew you up. Not to mention you're stepping down 10 pounds into a different weight class. And we never see the heavier guy win. We never see the heavier guy come down and win. Darren Elkins, he has been in wars. He's an old cat in a young man's sport. I just don't think Ryan Hall is that next level guy. I don't think he is that Damian Maia. I just think he submitted BJ Penn. Darren Elkins has a better wrestling game by far than, or it's probably equivalent to the jiu-jitsu of Ryan Hall. I know everyone's all high on Ryan Hall, but BJ Penn and you didn't submit Artem Lobov, who literally has arms the size of stumps. Going to decision 11 months ago in 3 weeks with Alexander Volkanovski, that is the biggest thing that either of these guys have ever done. And if Alexander couldn't cinch up your neck or do something brutal to you, there is no way Ryan Hall can. I think Elkins ekes out this decision. I think this will be the exciting one, the pacifier for all the California guys losing, because Elkins is going to be a big local favorite, I think. Elkins decision, and everyone's going to be like, oh, I knew Ryan Hall wasn't good after that. So I think put Elkins wherever you can, because Ryan Hall ain't that good.
I like what you're saying. I think you have very valid points here. This is a hard fight card to pick, for sure. I see live finishes on both sides. I see either one of these fighters, so I do think I'm going to be playing this more in like the 30% for each one. One or the other of these guys. Not going to be stacking this fight. Uriah Hall does tend to get booed in his fights, though, against Lobov and Maynard. Remember Maynard being like, come on, fight me. Mm-hmm. So I do feel like, this is going to be a gross fight potentially, but weird in itself. On DraftKings, you're going to end up paying for the slight favorite.
Rogers? Do you know anything about him?
No, I haven't.
That's the loss. That's the one Ryan Hall lost.
In a decision, and it was a fighter who outstruck him, I believe. It was on the Tough House fight, and he was able to keep it where he wanted to, and that was striking. Either way, 8,300.
Sounds like a Darren Elkins win.
Yeah.
Sounds like the same. What?
That's a great point.
And I like Darren Elkins wrestling. It's like good enough to stifle jiu-jitsu.
I would agree with that. 8,300 for Hall, slight favorite at plus 125 against 7,900 for Elkins. Again, I'm playing them both. I think they're both live for a finish.
I'll probably just play Elkins, but I'm not going heavy this fight card.
Agreed.
So I'll only be playing. I won't have any of my base covering plays or like, oh, just to ease the pain. If something weird goes down plays, I'll just play what I like. But it won't be that many. So far, I'm like, ooh.
Agreed. We have better cards coming up for sure. For sure. At 135 pounds, we're moving on to the bantamweight division where we have returning Juliana Pena coming off of a 2-year layoff against Nico Montano coming off of a 7-month layoff to Roxanne Modafferi. The former champion won the title off of the Tough House show, refusing to fight Valentina Shevchenko. Eventually she got the belt, so it all turned out good and well for that. But Montano coming in and saying that she had all sorts of issues and now she gets to redeem herself. Had to go back and watch that Modafferi fight. Tons of output for the 4-2 fighter. Off of the show, tons of output. A wrestling usually uses a wrestling to keep it striking. The Navajo fighter actually has serviceable striking and on the ground. She has good top position. She doesn't necessarily always go for the submission, but she will use that wrestling position, uses her wrestling well to be able to beat a lot of fighters. She's fought a lot of at-level competition, even in, out of the UFC, one of her only losses was to Julia Avila, who last fight card, she was one of those early fights, so at-level competition there. But Montano, tons of output. But again, that was against Roxanne Modafferi. I don't know if you're able to put that type of output on other women that actually will damage you in the strikes, because Montano does tend to keep her head straight in the air when she throws punches.
Roxanne Modafferi's the happy warrior.
Yes,
wouldn't
love it.
Wouldn't this be a better nickname? The angry librarian.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Roxanne Modafferi, the angry librarian.
Fan favorite here at Lab B. So, Montano, wrestling, striking, not that good defensive movement as well, but likes to use her wrestling. Juliana Pena is 8-3. She came off of her only loss in the UFC against Valentina Shevchenko. She's beat people like Jessica Ai, Kat Zingano, Dudieva in there, Jessica Rakosi. So Pena was one of these ladies that was coming up and gonna get a title defense or a title contender in there, but losing to Shevchenko and really showing where we knew here at Lab B what was gonna happen. Not surprised on this side, but she was a favorite in that fight, and she got eaten up on the ground. But she's since then gotten back to the gym. Interesting stories going out there about her. She's really been having issues with assault and just getting into fights outside of the ring. She's been having, people say she's a little unstable, and the 2 years that she had to take off wasn't because of mental health. It was because she got pregnant. She had a baby, and it was about 7 months ago. So she's coming back since then. She's going to be one of the moms fighting in the UFC. But what she likes to do is also use wrestling. She usually gets you up against the fence. On the ground, she's a submission specialist. She really likes to get it there. She actually has good elbows from top as well. And this is a wrestler versus wrestler. It turns into a grappling match. Striking-wise, I think Pena is a worse striker with more power. But Nico Montano has bad head movement, so she's going to get hit as well. So I think this turns into a slop fest. I have Pena winning a decision. I could even see a submission later in the third round. But there's no way I'm touching her on DraftKings for her price at all. And I do think that the line's a little skewed as far as betting-wise. I got Pena, but the line's off. Montano has a better shot than this, and it's for all the wrong reasons. Who do you have in this fight?
I have Pena decision as well. I don't think she's in any real danger here. I almost feel like Nico Montano used to be the 125 version of her, and now Juliana Pena is going down. And I know I just said the heavier fighter never comes down and wins, but Juliana Pena was never a natural 135er. She was just fighting in the only division that she could fight in. Her body was never shredded like that at 135 that I think we're going to get. Like we saw Jessica Ai step down, like we've seen Valentina step down. Juliana's going to look good at the 125 division, and I'm kind of excited about it. I think when she fought Val, it was at 135 now.
I think it was. I think you're right
so.
there. We could be wrong on that.
Could be, but I'm pretty sure. So seeing her step down is good. The crazy things for me, the reason I picked Val, not just because I love her to win, it was also because Juliana Pena followed some random dude, left her camp that she had been like winning every match with, left her camp, followed some dude to like Chicago or some other weird place, and then she was literally not in a camp. She wasn't settled at all. So I'm really hoping for Pena that she's coming back at the right time. She had her kid, let her body get into shape, let her mental get good, let her all this stuff laid out, and that she's also been at this camp for a while and she feels good there and has the right trainers. I don't know what's going on with Nico. It's been so hard to like her. It's hard to follow her. So I'm just going to say Pena is the slightly better version of Nico Montano. And she's just fought better competition.
Agreed. I think she's going to outsize her here as well. I think the advantage 5'7" versus 5'5", but I feel like Pena tends to cut a little bit more. Again, with the long layoffs to both, this is when we really got to watch weigh-ins for as well and really kind of get the reading there.
Sketch too.
Exactly. She might not show up.
She might not even show up.
She might not show up.
Nico or Pena will become too heavy of a favorite, and Nico Montano will get cyanitis.
Definitely. On to the 145 pounds. We're going to stay with an alpha male crew member with Andre Touchy-Feely coming in against Sherman Moreas. Both of these fighters have multiple fights in the UFC. Moreas coming in with an 11-3 record, losing twice in the UFC to Sadiq Youssef and Zabit Magomed Sharipov, which got him in the UFC. It was the only way he was willing to get in, short notice type of a fight, and actually went to a decision there, showing Zabit was human, beating Matt Salas in a decision, or Sales, also beating Julio Arce. Both of those fighters actually looking pretty good as of late. Last losing to Youssef, not as bad in a decision. The Muay Thai striker likes to keep it standing on the ground. He's serviceable, scrappy guy, good takedown defense, good power. I like his traps that he sets up. Moreas thinks on his feet in there. He doesn't get overwhelmed. He can put a game plan together and keep it where he wants to, but his takedown defense, as good as it is susceptible, especially getting into those later rounds. And off the ground, at times, he can't get back up once he gets taken down. He has it in him for a bit, but eventually it does start to wear on him. Andre Touchy-Feely, Team Alpha Male prodigy, actually one of the few Alpha Male guys that doesn't fall into that heavy right hand over type of fighter. Andre Feely, well-rounded everywhere. Good double leg takedown and actually uses his shots more than most of the Alpha Male crew, and in being using it as of late better than most of those guys. At 19-6, he's coming off a win against Miles Jury decision, losing to Michael Johnson in a split decision, beating Bermudez, beating Lobov, losing to Qatar in a decision in there, but Feely is a scrappy, touchy type of guy in there, and he will get finished before he taps or before any of that stuff happens. So always like to be on someone like that, someone who's willing to put it out on the line. And I do think he has a disadvantage striking. The jab is good for both of these guys in here, but I think the more wrinkles to the game is Touchy-Feely with that ground game and shots, where Moreas is pretty much strictly sprawl and brawl type of striker. Feely, once he gets to the ground, he does have avenues to move. Moreas is a legit, I think, a purple belt. I could be off on that. He's serviceable on the ground, but he can't get stuck down there, and Feely has that in his back pocket. Give me Touchy-Feely in a decision for this one. He is the slight underdog at plus 115. You need him? I got him for you.
I've gone back and forth on this, and I'm kind of leaning Feely only because I just think he's one of the few fighters to me who I just think he's consistently getting better every time I watch him come out. I know everybody's like, every fighter's getting better. That's not true. The kid's ring IQ is getting good. His striking's getting more crisp. His wrestling's more on lock. I like Sherman Moreas. I just think the longer the fight goes, the more Feely is going to be good in there. He just has a little more experience. I think it's time for Feely. If he's going to make that run, it's now. And I kind of like him in this division. I'm waiting for him to kind of build up steam and get like main card time. He's just like one of those, you want a flashy guy, not Benito Lopez. Start giving it to Touchy-Feely. Start putting the flash on him. But he has to get past Sherman Moreas, and I really like Sherman Moreas. I'm going Feely decision. I think it's going to be a close decision.
Yep.
Gosh. Ooh. I think you got a long, boring night of grinding fights.
I haven't seen that as well. I totally agree. I think it's going to be wrestling heavy for both sides. On DraftKings, the minus 145 favorite, Shaman Moreas at 8,400 against Touchy-Feely 7,800. I'm going to play Touchy-Feely here.
Yeah, I think so too.
Definitely. Definitely. Moving on to the 205-pound division, we have Mike Rodriguez coming back in against debuting short notice replacement John Allen. Allen coming out of that Brazilian scene. The fighter is 13-5 in MMA, mainly losing via submission to Vinicius Moreas in his last. And do you remember who Vinicius is? Moreas?
No.
Also as Mammoth. Does that ring a bell?
Maybe.
Eric Andres just did a little work on him.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so Vinicius ended up beating Allen on the Contender Series Brazil 10 months ago. Since then, he has come back and beat Alexandre Silva in a TKO a week ago. Literally 8 days ago, he knocked out a man dead. I watched it. It's a brutal uppercut finish. The Muay Thai striker in there is 26 years old, has a lot of experience in Muay Thai, and tends to be a Muay Thai fighter. I don't want to say he's Donald Cerrone level, but his pace is that Donald Cerrone where we're like, he gives up 4 minutes of the first round, wakes up. His best round's usually his second round. Third round, he can hold on in there. And I feel like that's what a lot of fights I saw. He's a game fighter, throws a stiff left hook shoot box fighter, so he's got a lot of Brazilian lineage there. They're known to take short notice fights. I mean, he's game. On the ground, though, the few times I did end up seeing Allen get to the ground, if it was just because of a bad trip from his opponent's also not being the best caliber. He did beat, I believe it was a Leo. No, I'm getting those guys because there's another debuter on here later. But either way, Allen's Muay Thai, when he's gotten to the ground off of a random trip or in a mix-up, he stays in the guard. He doesn't pass. There's zero ground game from Allen at all. He's not trying to submit you. He's strictly a striker who likes to get it done in there, sprawl and brawl if he can. Has all right pummeling in there. Against Mike Rodriguez, he was initially going to fight John Vellante, and Gian Vellante is a money cow for us. We usually like to bet against them, and it comes out.
Yeah, really.
So I was looking to be like, money, this is about to be a banana slip in the cage, peel, TKO by Rodriguez, and I'm going to get 159 points, but it doesn't come out that way. I think he actually has a harder competitor here in Allen than Vellante. Yeah, and that's a lot to say, but it's just that chin.
Vellante a little better, but that chin.
It's that chin. You can't. That chin's so gone. Where Allen will take a shot. He'll take a shot to give a shot, and he'll throw that left hook with a lot of power. He also will step in and throw that reverse Anderson Silva elbow. And he does it a lot against higher level competition. He's not going to go in. Nope.
Oh,
no.
Different.
Where it's more of a jab, and he walks into it and throws it straight up.
Okay.
So Rodriguez, though, being a bit of a veteran, 10-3, he lost to Devin Clark in a unanimous decision, beating Jamel Jones as a contender, and last beating Adam Milstead TKO knee 6 months ago. Milstead we haven't heard of since then. That real telling fight with Devin Clark. How do you feel about Devin Clark in general? Exactly. So the fact that Rodriguez went there, Clark was able to implement his wrestling to be able to turn it into a decision.
Better than Vinicius?
I think Devin Clark beats Vinicius as well.
Yeah.
So, it's that wrestling that you got to use against Rodriguez. Rodriguez is a striker. He threw a flying knee on the Contender Series to get into the UFC. He threw it against Devin Clark. Devin Clark was able to eat those big shots and finally drag it out. The cardio is an issue for Rodriguez. Rodriguez uses elbows, but they're more inside in the clinch. His clinch is better. Actually, I didn't see too many people clinching with Allen because of that Muay Thai as well. He's just a good Muay Thai fighter. I think Allen has a legit shot here. I don't see it going to the ground at all, but I just think the lines are off here. The minus 450 for Rodriguez, I know it's short notice, but this is the times where we're like, whoa, where'd this guy come from? And it's because he is such an intangible. You didn't practice for him. You didn't get ready for him. He was getting ready for John Vellante. So that does throw a wrench in there. I'm going to go Rodriguez decision. I don't know if he gets the finish. I think Allen's a tough enough guy that doesn't have to worry about the submission. Striking-wise, think they can eat everything, and they just kind of both gas out going into that third round. Give me Rodriguez decision. I'm not going to be putting him in any spots. I see a decision type of thing here. Who do you got?
So you think that Allen could be a crazy little sneaky underdog play? Because he probably will be the cheapest guy, don't you think, on
by far. He's by far the biggest underdog of the night. By far.
And you think it's a sneaky good underdog. And also you say he fights on short notice, or the way it sounds like you think he has a shot.
Yep.
And he regularly fights on short notice, and Mike Rodriguez hasn't been training for a guy like him. So if his striking's better than John Vellante's, and John Vellante, he strikes too.
Yeah, he's a good striker.
You know, he has good leg kicks, but is it anything like a guy who's just steady Muay Thai young kid? I don't know. That's scary. I have Mike Rodriguez decision too, because I'm going to stick with what I know here, and I know slow. And I like the trajectory that I've seen for him. I think he's right in the sweet spot of his career. I don't know anything about this other kid, so we will see.
Good leg kicks, by the way, for Allen as well. Good thing you brought that up. He does like to target even that calf kick at times.
I think that could be a game changer if you can take away Mike Rodriguez's power.
That length in there, because he is a towering fighter at 6'4" against the 6'3" Rodriguez, so not giving up that much range. He just is really
But he has
long.
that John Jones reach.
Yep, he's got that
which we don't
on.
see all the time.
But we just saw those leg kicks come into a play for that, which we'll talk about.
Just a little tasty reminder, if you want to stay with us, it's going to be like the end credit scenes in like Spider-Man Coming Home. Coming Home, I think that's the next one. I don't want to, no spoiler alerts.
No spoiler alerts. Mike Rodriguez, though, being the biggest favorite of the night, minus 450, coming in at 9,400 on DraftKings against Allen's plus 360. John Allen's going to end up costing you 6,800. I'm going to put him on 10% of my cards because he's the guy who gets you the first place spot.
Oh, yeah. Whoever, if he wins,
if he wins, it's by a KO.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Does he have a shot to KO?
Yeah,
Mike
that's
Rodriguez?
what I'm saying.
You think it's?
That's what I'm saying.
Huh.
I think he does. I think that left hook lands hard.
I think Mike Rodriguez can KO anyone as well.
I agree. I agree with that.
I might change mine to Mike Rodriguez KO, but it has to happen round 2. Round 1 maybe, because you said John Allen's a slow starter. I'm not going to go heavy on this, but I'm really, I like everything you said about it.
It's a fun one. It was actually fun to break down tape on him because I thought Allen was going to be one-dimensional, one-punch type of guy. And right at minute number 4, it's like 3-4-punch combinations, then like 9-punch finishes. So, fun, young fighter in what we're seeing with that young man. But moving on to 185 pounds, we have the main event. If you're trying to make money... The main card, I mean. If you're trying to make money, you're going to be following at Zol tonight at Weak Neck Baby, at Lesbo and the Bean. We got plus money puestas. We got all sorts of stuff coming down the line. There's underdogs for days on both sides we're both picking here. There's some with shots, some with not. It's definitely going to be I think there's money to be made here. I think there is some really fun parlays that we can put together. And one of those is going to be coming up at 185 pounds with Cesar Montanch Ferrera coming in against Marvin, the Italian stallion, Vittori. I mean, the Italian dream, Vittori. That doesn't... The Italian dream.
What's that? A good Stromboli and calzone?
A good Stromboli in your calzone.
What's that? A robbed truck and a good calzone?
So, Vittori being 12-3... Here, Emmanuel was picking him actually against Adesanya. His last loss in a controversial split decision actually gave the up-and-coming star. Adesanya since then fought a few times. Vittori taking a 2-month layoff due to injuries in there. But it was a hard-fought battle. Vittori was coming forward, and Adesanya looked a little more mortal in that fight when you go back and look at it. Vittori really gave a showing of himself, and he likes to use that Italian wrestling to get it down. Good ground and pound. It's probably his best attribute. But now when he's facing guys with better takedown defense, it is definitely getting much tougher, his style of fighting. At 25 years old, he's evolving at King's MMA. His whole year off was a bit due to injury, but he's training with top-level guys. I know Beneil Dariush. There's a lot of guys that will run through there as well in the higher 85 weight division that off the top of my head, I can't think of. But Vittori likes to use, again, that wrestling. Striking-wise, he has a jab right hook, but he really only throws them in 1-2s and doesn't really evolve. He'll throw a punch into a hook as well every once in a while, but limited on the striking. He definitely wants to get it on the ground to try to grind you out in there. Against Ferrera, the 13-7 fighter is definitely a guy in there who has had some of the best wrestling at 185 pounds ever. If you just look at his stats, more takedowns than any light heavyweight. I could be off on that, but he's in that top 3 of the division. Has great differential takedown and even takedown defense issues in there. He's lost to Elias Duradoa in the UFC, but in between then, he beat Ian Marquardt, also beating Carl Roberson.
Nate Marquardt.
Was it Nate? It was Nate Marquardt, my bad. Also beating Jack Hermanson via submission triangle choke. Ferrera is a black belt who really uses a good double leg takedown, single transitions to get it to the ground. But once you're able to get it standing with him, he cannot take a punch. His chin has been the biggest issue. And he was one of the first guys to really be like, I can't strike anymore with these guys. And been using that wrestling really beneficially for him. Against Ian Heinisch, a big underdog here for us. We were both on him in that fight. Against Cara de Zapato, we said the same thing. Because the way you gotta beat Ferrera is in wrestling and just getting that gas tank. He does have a little bit of issues going into that third round as well. He's a muscle-bound guy in there, and it's just something he's never been able to shore up quite well. But on the ground, he's a demon. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and he's shown it multiple times. He loves to go for a triangle choke, where I feel like Vittori earlier in his career has had a triangle choke finish, and that's Mutan's number 1 submission. So his transitions are good on the ground. He can sweep from all sorts of angles. So if Vittori does get it down, I think Mutanch still has an advantage even on the bottom. It's all whether that ground and pound finishes, because he can get clipped at any point in time. This is a close fight, but I do think that Mutanch can either get that triangle, get a rear naked, or win a hard-fought decision. I say the first 2 rounds go to Ferrera. Third one, he's going to be holding on for his life, but I think he's going to do enough. Give me the slight underdog plus 120 for Cesar Ferrera. Who do you have in this fight and why?
It's weird because it's like the last few guys that Ferrera's gone against have all been ground guys, and the last few guys that Marvin's gone against have all been strikers. So it's just a odd matchup where I know anything in MMA can go either way, but this one I could go back and forth on. The weird part of Vittori is even though he looks a certain way, he's not really a knockout artist. It's like you kind of expect him to be, but he's more of a decision fighter, and that never goes great for him. But then it never goes great for either of these guys.
Agreed.
If it goes to decision... Has Vittori ever showed out since he's been in the UFC? Are they still just trying to push him because he's Italy? I hope he's at the right camp. He's young. He looks the part. I think Cesar Ferrera is the right pick here. I just think he's just gone against significantly better competition, and I know everyone's like, Israel Adesanya? I feel, wasn't that Israel's first or second fight? It was super...
It was, I think it was a second or third fight, but it was still fairly early. Adesanya has been very, very active as well in there, but we have...
Adesanya is a pure striker, though.
Right.
Pure striker. Cesar Ferrera is so different than that. I'm glad he took the right time off, Vittori. I think this is going to be a good 185 fight.
It is a close fight.
I like Ferrera decision right now. I don't know if Vittori's UFC caliber.
He couldn't finish Vitor Miranda. Vitor Miranda, he freaking won a decision, lost us again. Junior, Cara de Zapato, I was saying them earlier.
Yeah.
I think that same thing happens, and I think that Ferrera ends up on top more often than not. But on DraftKings, for the slight 150 favorite, you're going to end up paying $8,600 for Vittori against Cesar Ferrera's underdog plus 120.
Wow.
$7,600.
That's off to me for sure.
Give me another underdog. Again, we're saying they're going to be hard-fought decisions, but we're seeing underdogs in these decisions, so that's beneficial. We put 2 of these parlays together, that's money.
If Vittori This is his fight, though. It's been so long off. Was he off for injury, or was he just off for training, changing
7
camps?
months for Ferrera, who?
Vittori.
Oh,
he's had a long way.
I believe it was a hand injury. I can't be 100% on that right
now. I'm interested to see him come back here. If he has a really good showing, he's going to be an interesting cat in the division. I just have yet to see that. But this is a long layoff to come back against a guy that's as active as Ferrera, too.
But at 25 years old, can he make a big leap in there?
Yes.
You know, he's like, whoa,
I
a year
so.
at Kings?
It's like the younger you are, the quicker you'll learn a language. I think that's for sure. And at a great camp, I love everything that I'm seeing. This is the stuff that hits all the check marks that I'm like, ooh, he's interesting coming back. But
it's an interesting one. At that, I'm surprised you had the underdog there as well, honestly.
Well, I kind of feel like Ferrera, I know there's a big push because of the people but I feel like Ferrera would give Israel Adesanya a run for his money.
No. I don't know about now. I don't know at this point in time. That chin for Ferrera is the scariest thing. It's like we were saying earlier. It's just, you can't trust the chin of Ferrera. So if he...
I know everyone's super high on Israel. I love him. I know he's like a big, huge hype train. I know he's my hype train. But I just think, I don't know. I think he might be a one-dimensional cat or something.
I could see
I'm just getting, the more I watch UFC, I just don't think you can be one-dimensional. It just makes me nerve-wracked for these guys. But Ferrera's kind of a one-dimensional cat, too. It's that
He's a wrestler.
It's that Damien, yeah.
Yep,
Ugh.
exactly. Interesting fight card we have
Yucky.
ahead of us. Moving on, staying in the 185-pound division, we're going to have Carl Roberson coming in against short notice replacement Wellington Turman. Turman coming in at 15-2, losing in a decision 5 fights ago, then coming back and beating 13-8, 13-7, 12-3 type of fighters. The 22-year-old has been very, very active in there. Actually has a fun fighting style, more of a striker. I believe it might be like in that 8 to 9 day notice as well. I can't think off the top of my head who fell out on him. It's someone we know. But either way, Robertson in here is the striker that we are a little more aware of. The 7-2 fighter is coming off of a loss to Ferrera, beating Marshman in a decision, losing to Teixeira in a decision. He submitted Stewart and TKO'd Ryan Spann on the Contender Series with all that K1 striking in there. Robertson he's a flash type of a fighter. His gas tank isn't that good. Chin can be tested in there, and he can be ground out as well. He isn't that young. What was his age limit in here? He's 28 years old, fighting out of the Killa Bee Combat Sports. Is that with Ben Saunders out there in New Jersey? No, that's wrong.
No, because he's in
New
Orlando
Jersey
or something.
Yeah, he is, or over with that 10 Planet. But Robertson, we've just seen more of the short notice replacement. The little bit of tape that I was able to gather on him, his competition was fairly low. He looks like he has a little extra weight on the side. I don't think it's going to be a hard cut for him. He's fighting lower level competition out of Brazil. The guys he fought, I think one of them was a Lyoto type of a fighter in there, a karate type of style fighter that was a pretty fun finish, but hard-nosed fighter. He's not going to give up in there. He's a guy who knows that he's an underdog and is going to come in swimming and has nothing to lose. So I think Robertson, there's a shot with this type of a striker Brazilian. Just like we were talking about earlier in the night, he has that type of style. But if it goes to the ground, Robertson's going to have a big advantage if he's able to take it down. The takedown defense I saw from Wellington wasn't really that good, and it was, again, against low-level competition. So I think he should go there.
Robertson gets submitted by everyone? And if somebody is even capable of submitting, it could be dangerous?
This guy I just didn't see on the ground him really going for submissions and them even getting close in there.
His last fight he won by submission, rear naked choke. And he won
a guillotine and a rear naked choke. He hurt for that submission rear naked choke. He hurt him striking. I think it was a left hook as well. He was orthodox fighter. Muay Thai striker, I believe. He's coming out of the Guilherme Ribeiro team, couldn't say, out of Curitiba, Brazil. So He's an underdog for a reason. It's short notice. He's getting his foot in the door. He's going to fight again. But I even think that when you see him, you're going to be like, dang, that guy could make 170 eventually. Like, he just has, And
maybe
size.
the short notice is the reason that he took it at a heavier weight class.
Could be.
But the time span looks like he could have been in some sort of...
fight shape?
Yeah.
I agree 2 months ago was his last fight. So he's going to have an uphill battle here. I do think that Roberson gets it done. He could... I hope he doesn't keep it striking.
Roberson went to decision with Jack Marshman.
I know. He gassed hard.
And Jack Marshman is a striker only.
Right.
This fight wholly changed for me. This is a weird...
Agreed. This is a weird fight. Agreed. I got Robertson submission round number 1. But if the further this fight gets into, Turman has a shot because he does have an okay gas tank in there. He doesn't go out there and try to blow you out of the water. Like, he gets into methodical fights, and that's Robertson's worst game plan. Robertson wants someone to get in his face and
I feel like this guy could be better submission artist than Robertson. It seems like, this is crazy, but this is just a crazy fight card. I'm not going heavy. Anyway, I'm going to go with the freaking give me the newcomer submission round 2. Roberson goes in there and burns himself out in round 1 against a guy that can handle it. I could totally see that happening. Getting submitted by Glover Teixeira 5 months ago. I don't know about that. I don't know how I feel about that.
He hurt Glover, but Glover was able to live through it, and then Roberson gassed, and then he gave it up. He gave up that submission. He was like, all right, you win. It's that gas. That gas tank is very weak, and he panics.
Roberson against a guy with nothing to lose.
I agree with that. I think you're valid here.
I can't believe this, but my fight card's so messy. I'm already looking down it, and I'm like, whoa, I got some strange picks, so might as well just keep it kooky.
Carl Roberson coming in at 9,100 against Turman's 7,100, so not the biggest underdog of the night. I like what you're saying. I don't think it's kooky. I think it could be, high-level scoring.
I'm going to do it round 3. I think Roberson gives up by then. Or the end of round 2, I could also see.
I got a submission round 2, Roberson. So, woo! Hot fire!
I don't see Roberson submitting at all. I think the only way he could win is a knockout, maybe a decision. But even that gets sketchy because his gas tank.
Minus 200 for Roberson against the plus 160. Are you going to do any type of a parlay or any type of a side bet with these guys?
I have such a weird, nasty card. It's the kind of parlaying night.
Right? You stack a couple of those bad boys and you're cashing big quickly in there. Moving on to 145 pounds, back into the lighter weights, we have 2 returning fighters with Josh Emmett versus Mirsad Bektic. Both of these fighters that have had their ups and downs in the UFC. Bektic being 13-1, only losing to Darren Elkens. The Damage, able to get it done 2 years ago in there on a gassed Bektic. Bektic threw everything in the kitchen sink in there, and Elkens ate it and then was able to come back in that 3rd round. Then beating Godofredo Pepe and Ricardo Lamas in a split decision. It's hard to read Lamas' fights and who beat him because he has show-out fights and then he gets knocked out by smaller guys. It's just really hard because he has everything there. And a split decision means he went 3 hard rounds against the guy with good fight IQ. So Bektic is getting better. He's at TriStar. He was at Top Team for a while. He was in Missouri before that. He's just bounced around from fight team to fight team. And his cardio has been his biggest issue in that split decision in Lamas. It came up again. Darren Elkins was able to take advantage of that. Pepe wasn't because that was a finish, but Pepe really isn't a UFC type of fighter. He beat down in a submission and Lucas Martinez as well, TKO. Bektic's background initially looked really good, but the more that those fighters' careers have gone, they haven't looked as good to me. I think Bektic a year ago beating Lamas isn't as good, where we saw the 14-2 fighter get absolutely murked in there. I mean, it was one of the most devastating KOs I've ever seen in person against Jeremy Stevens.
Easily the latest strike I've seen in the last 2 years.
Oh, the 239 didn't count? 239
I think it was worse.
Really?
I think Jeremy Stevens and the fact they didn't call that was brutal, and the fact that it went that way, that he ended up breaking his face.
It was an illegal knee that started all that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Illegal knee.
Okay.
I forgot. It was a legal knee.
It was an illegal knee.
It was an illegal knee. I knew it was something shitty.
Yeah.
I knew it was something shitty. But yeah, it was that illegal knee. But I think there was late strikes as well.
Oh, yeah.
That's not the part. It was the brutal illegal knee that broke Emmett's face and also broke his win streak in the UFC. He was making mean work of people.
Definitely beating the people like Ricardo Lamas in a TKO. Heavy overhand right. Felipe Arantes losing to Des Green in there in a split decision. Again, that huge KO.
Des Green murders people.
Literally.
I know. That's what... Sorry. That's
Boo!
Yeah. Hiss.
So,
that's not even funny.
Michael Johnson. I'm sorry, sweet babe Jesus.
Say it 3 times and then you're forgiven.
Michael Johnson, as of late, getting finished by Emmett. Emmett, we didn't know what was going to come back because there was a really dangerous situation where Emmett should have never been on a plane. And Florida was like, you're good, dude. And he came back like 4 weeks later and was like, my face is still brutal.
My brain's leaking out of my ear. Is this normal?
Yeah. And they're like, oh, your face has been broken this whole time. And it's like, wow. So they took care of it. He came out and ended up winning decisively over Michael Johnson, a veteran that's really hard to get out of there, but though he has been finished. That overhand right, the game plan prior to that was keep it striking. Both of these guys kept it striking, and Emmett has been able to use his wrestling in reverse to keep it there. Even when he wrestles, he's a D1 wrestler, team alpha male prodigy. We know what we get with Emmett, but he's really started to advance that left hook as well. I think that's been a lot of guys I've been highlighting on this entire fight card. I'm just like, man, these guys got really, they open up everything. That right hand is always opened up with that good left hook, but that's sign of a good fighter. So either way, Emmett has hard uppercuts as well and has power into that third round. He's shown it on many, many fights. He's also broken his finger in his debut on short notice, and it was sticking out of his thumb, or his finger was sticking out of his glove, and the ref should have called it, and he was like, I'm good, because he knew he was going to be good. You remember that?
Oh, my gosh.
So Emmett will do whatever he needs to do in there unless he's finished. Wrestling, again, he's got all the credentials in there. He can scramble, so I think they cancel each other out on the ground. But I think Bektic still gasses more out of the two fighters. I think that even if they're both tired and going limiting, the way that Emmett throws his strikes, they're with everything.
And he puts together some deadly
combinations as well. Totally a good point.
Head and body. It looks like it's a devastating striking battle in there, but if you watch it in slow-mo, you're like, oh, Emmett's got good head movement.
Yep, Edmund's been winning that for sure, but against a hardcore striker like Bektic, this is a stylistic matchup that has just got juiciness written all over it. I'm definitely going to be watching this all over. I'm going to be playing it heavy because I got another underdog. Give me Emmett plus 145 against Bektic. A lot of people coming in on Bektic's side, but again, I'm giving you the reasons why I got this. I think it ends in the third. Actually, I'm going decision. If I got to finish, it's on Emmett's side for me, and it would be more in that third. Who do you have in this fight and why?
I actually have Emmett for a finish, and I think it's kind of weird that Bektic's the favorite here. I think Emmett's done everything right in the UFC, and people are saying that Jeremy Stevens KO, but that was illegal AF. Everything about it was illegal. It kind of went shitty, and I feel like if it wasn't such a favorite and the audience didn't hype so much, for some reason, once it was called, they couldn't go back on it, and that would be contentious. That should be one of those things that's a gray D.
Right. No contest.
No contest.
Right.
Even though I had Stevens to win, he was not winning any part of that. And we love Jeremy Heathen Stevens. We love him on his feet. We think he has killer stand-up, but he looked like shit in there against Emmett. Emmett was piecing him apart everywhere. That and going to decision with Ricardo Lamas, that was a brutal fight, but Ricardo Lamas's chin, if you can't knock him out in any point of that fight, you're not going to be able to knock out Josh Emmett. I think he not only cuts you by 1,000 cuts, I think he works the body, head goes up and down and up and down. I think he gets all in the inside with these close, powerful punches. I think he also is a guy that can beat you with power. So power and cut you by 1,000 cuts. Give me Josh Emmett here. Late round 2 knockout. I can see it.
I agree. That's a big underdog for the show here, both on that side. You're going to end up paying for the plus 160 favorite, Mirsad Bektic, 8,800 on DraftKings. For Emmett, you're going to play him at 7,400. I can pick anybody I want, as many freaking underdogs as I got on these DraftKings cards. I'm just going to be littering it with all sorts of guys, so I don't know if it's going to be high scoring or not. I want to see what the other bettors out there are saying after this. I'm going to be able to finally listen to them. But I don't know. I feel like I'm crazy. I feel like I'm picking a lot of underdogs as well.
We have our cards don't match at all.
Not even close. Not even close. So that's kind of a good thing, right?
It's fun. That makes you guys feel secure about your picks.
Yeah.
And then the 2 we agree on, or 3, are all underdogs.
Right.
Ooh,
Right.
Weird fight card. I went heavy favorites last week, and this week I will go heavy underdogs,
And
apparently.
we'll get there. We'll get there. At the co-main event, we're going to step into the 135-pound division with Uriah Faber coming out of retirement against Ricky Simon. Simon is going to come in. How do you prefer that I say Simon? Simon or Simon?
Simone?
I think it's Simone as well, because there's the O.
And I don't know why I always feel like it's Hickey Simone.
He's Mexican, not Brazilian. But I like Hickey Simone.
Ricky.
Hickey Simone is a fun one.
No, he's not Cuban either.
No, it is definitely a Vancouver, Washington type of fighter, fighting out of Rose City FC, out of the Pacific Northwest. A 15-1 fighter, has fought multiple times in the UFC, beating Haniyaya in a decision, beating Dakishvili in a fight that he lost until that last second. That was a controversial submission, beating Montel Jackson as a big underdog. Hickey usually does his best as an underdog, was an LFA champion as well, really likes to use his wrestling to get it done in there. Tons of shots in there. I believe he set a record or 2 in there at the division against either Yaya or somebody else as far as takedowns. He gets up, takes you down. I think it was up in that 8 to 9 range, and really his striking has been coming along, putting 3 and 4 punch combinations, as you were saying before with a previous fighter. He goes to the body and head well. Not a power puncher, but he does kill you by 1,000 cuts. But it's really been that wrestling that's been taking over for Simone, and he's been putting together decisive wins in there. He has definitely been a cash cow as far as DraftKings as well, usually being an underdog, but here against the now returning retiree, 40-year-old new father, we have Uriah Faber, the chin himself, coming in to try to beat the up-and-coming prospect. He is a 34-10 fighter, last beating 2 years, 6 months ago, Brad Pickett in the decision. But prior to that, he lost to Rivera, to Dominic Cruz in a decision, beating Sainz, beating Edgar losing to Edgar in a decision as well. But we've seen everything we need to see from Uriah Faber. He's not changing. He's staying the same old, same old. He's going to throw that overhand right. He's who started the alpha male freaking archetype.
Overhand right to takedown.
Overhand right to takedown, takedown to overhand right. Mix it up, kicks in there every once in a while. If his hands break from those overhand rights, he goes to elbows, but he's never been a power puncher. He's knocked out a few guys, but that's been few and far between now. He tends to be a wrestler, submission guy in there, get it done on there. But honestly, the 40-year-old is innovator of the sport. He was doing some of the best takedown defense, some of the best wrestling, really showing how you could use D1 wrestling as an MMA fighter, and there was a lot of young guys that used that. Ricky Simone being one of those guys that specifically said, I used to watch Uriah Faber and knew I needed to take wrestling. So he's taken what Uriah was doing, who didn't evolve from that, and now doing it better in every facet of the game. I feel like the submissions might not be as diverse for Ricky Simone, but I think his control is by far a lot stronger. So I see a one-sided decision. I don't know if it's a finish because Faber is a guy who will never quit in there. So he's not a guy that you have to worry about just giving away your money. He's going to fight he'll go unconscious if he needs to. Hasn't been put to that, and that shows to his veteranship. But I think Faber being in Sackdown is going to have a big contingency there. He's still going to be a big underdog. And I just don't see how you can. I think he's like, whoa, that sucked. I don't know if I want to do that. I think he wanted the UFC to be like, yeah, put me in there against one of those young guys, one of those other young guys that hasn't fought in the UFC, and they're like, no, here's a real prospect. And I think Uriah is going to step back away.
We have a shit California card and need to somehow fill it with a local favorite. Can you go ahead and fight for us real quick? And then you can lay down your ring in your home state. You can lay down your gloves.
The gloves. Yeah. That's a great point.
Oh.
He will probably do that. And I want to know, prior to this, if it's a guaranteed purse. He doesn't do the 50 for 50.
Oh, Uriah. I'm sure.
Uriah's like, no.
Very
300,000 flat.
This. I think he gets a very clean deal for this. He's only fighting geriatric fighters. It power's the last thing to go, which Uriah Faber never had. So he would win by decision, if anything, and relied on his speed to do that. He's not going to have the speed advantage here. He's not going to have the power advantage here. He's not going to have really any of the advantages here. If Simone even made it to decision with Filli, he's going to handle Uriah Faber. I think this is a weird decision. You say like Uriah Team Alpha gets to pick their opponents a lot. This is a weird opponent, in my opinion, for Uriah Faber to pick for himself. Maybe he saw holes in Ricky's game and thinks he can beat him. I don't know. I got Ricky Simone winning by decision, but I think Uriah Faber, it's not going to be a brutal beating, so he's going to be able to stand in there and get interviewed afterward and lay down his gloves. That's the bet. Is Uriah Faber going to retire? Simone decision.
I like what you're saying in there with Faber coming in and doing a favor for the UFC, but they didn't do him any favors by giving him Simone here. So they're going to say...
Roasted. We'll talk about it in a minute.
They're
almost
there. They're trying to pass the juice on to Simone.
Yeah, maybe.
Is
he a local guy too?
No, it's all Faber. He's definitely not the local guy. On DraftKings, you're going to end up paying for the big favorite, minus 300, 9,300 for Simone against Faber's 6,900. I'm going to have money to put Simone on my cards because I think it's a one-sided fight regardless.
I do too. It's
a lot of takedown heavy.
Oh, yeah.
So
I don't even know if there'll be takedowns. I just think he'll be able to piece Faber up a little bit.
But they both have high paces, and that's why I feel like it's going to be a good fight to be able to target. I don't think Faber, though, at all, because he's going to get in that 15 Nardiev type of range. We're getting there. I
just don't think you can be 40 years old in this fast division.
Yeah, totally a great point. On to the main event, 135 pounds. Bantamweight, we have Aspen, the Screaming Banshee Lad, coming in against GDR, the Iron Lady. We've played with her name a little bit. She didn't want that smoke from Christiana Cyborg. She ended up taking a step away after she won that belt.
And looking back, she might have been fine. Like, after seeing Holly against her and Amanda, you would have been fine.
Is that mental games? Is that mental games?
Because you didn't know that at the time. Cyborg men didn't want to fight her.
She quit to be a cop.
Huh.
Remember that? That's what she went and did. She's a cop in Holland.
Huh.
GDR, Iron Lady, but she has been training in the States at AKA, so I don't know if she's...
probably hurt coming into this, is what you're saying.
But she has been training in the States for a bit now. She hasn't been doing that cop thing, but it's something that here at Latvia, we don't like that very much. We don't like people with part-time, but she takes like 8 months off at a time. Like, she's able to save up her PTO and all that type of stuff. They have a different system apparently out there. But Darren Dami, we know what we get from her. She is an 8-3 fighter, only losing to Nunes TKO elbows on the ground 5 years ago. Then she's beat Pacheco, ML Rose, Holm in a decision, controversial, some late shots there, and then Raquel Pennington in a decision 7 months ago. But that's a Rocky who's definitely done. Had leg issues. I don't know if her and Tisha were done at that point because they're officially outs.
Oh, I didn't know that.
We saw her on her own, remember?
We didn't see Rocky.
I looked for Rocky and I was like, whoa. And I even was like, why? Why? That's weird. I think it should be the other way around. I feel like Rocky should be right here. And did some research. The outs. She ain't in Colorado no more. Tisha's back over here in Florida.
And right at the beginning of that, GDR was kicking that leg, and you could tell that Rocky was no bueno. No de bueno.
100%. GDR comes in with that Muay Thai striking. She's had multiple championships outside of the UFC for strictly Muay Thai. Great clinch. The Iron Lady has fought a man and knocked him out in there. Another professional fighter. That's some fun footage. I hope it starts going around. I will retweet it when I find it. But she can, I mean, great right hand. She'll throw it late if she has to. She don't give a damn. So GDR is a competitor in there. She is a bit older.
She'll throw it late twice.
Exactly.
If you ain't taking a point, I'm going to throw it again.
Truth. But GDR, fighting out of the Netherlands, 35 years old. She's been over here at AKA. She actually has serviceable takedown defense. I believe it's in the 95% takedown defense range. People say 100, but I think you could find one in there every once in a while. She has a great whizzer, great hips when she sprawls, and then as soon as she breaks, what is always what we liked about GDR before she did that weird layoff stuff, was that she punishes you. As soon as you get up, like she gets you in that clinch, she throws those knees, and she's got those long legs. She's got that spider frame, so she really uses that jab well, keeps women on the outside with a jab, and finally picks them off with that right. But in the mix of all that, she's throwing leg kicks that hurt. So GDR is a super serviceable striker and been fighting championship level fighters in noons, in home, in there. And Pennington, I got to pass a little bit, but that home win being 5 rounds does weigh on me, even though it was a little while ago. Ladd's coming in with a perfect 8-0 record.
And it was after 2 late strikes, and one of them actually wobbled Holly, where she was like...
Great point.
Whoa.
Great point. Ladd coming in with a perfect 8-0 record, beating Lena Landsberg, beating Sijara Eubanks in the Invicta scene, Invicta scene. Also beating Tanya Evinger, TKO. That was an early stoppage. I will claim that to the day I die. That was a bench scream. So, Emma Rose as well, but she was more done to rights. Last, winning a decision over Sijara Eubanks in a 3-round decision, which was a high grappling heavy. Sijara being that black belt out of that Gracie system. Ladd proved that her wrestling and ground awareness at 24 years old is high level as well. She was able to use her gas tank to beat Eubanks, but Eubanks was up a weight and is notoriously not take her training seriously. Eubanks did well in the striking and actually proved to me that there's deficiencies in the head movement for freaking Ladd.
Yeah.
For Aspen Ladd, she got hit by a non-striker a lot in there, and she really had to work for those takedowns in there. And this is the fight that I have gone the hardest back on because it's one-sided either way. If it gets to the ground, Ladd is a decided favorite on the ground. Her ground and pound, if she's able to keep it there, is going to be able to really rack up the points because she spams you with those punches, always is passing to a higher position, getting over those hips. But if it doesn't and it stays striking, Dirandami has the power and the ability to be able to make Ladd pay for every second she can't get her to the mat. So I see this being super, super close of a fight. This is a coin flip. I had Ladd all week. I switched again this morning to Dirandami because, and I gotta give credit to Evil Twin, and it burns. That burns. You don't even know. But it's true. Dirandami's went into 5-round fights and trained for 5-round fights multiple times. This turned into a 5-round fight like 2 months ago, if that. So Ladd's never been there. She's specifically only fought 3 rounds. And again, if she gasses like she has in other fights, because it did happen in even that, not this in the decision, you can really see it in that 3rd round for Ladd. So an extra 2 rounds, GDR can get there. That wizard, that sprawl, it's a matter of time until that clinch and that knee gets in there. I think it's a right hand finish. TKO round number 4, maybe even sooner. But this is a coin flip. And either fighter being an underdog, I think you could put money on. But of course, Dirandami being an underdog plus 125. Give me that money. Woo!
I agree that she's made it 5 rounds with Holly, but there were also rounds that she was losing, and she looked gassed AF in those long fights. And she only doing that how many years ago? That doesn't mean you're going to have the cardio now. So in my opinion, I follow Ladd on her IG, and I've just watched her run fucking mountains and mountains and mountains for months and months and months way before this fight. I think her cardio is going to be fine. Her body looks better than it ever has, and she hasn't even cut weight yet. I gotta think this is more of a push by the UFC, and if I'm Dana, I want to push Ladd. She's a young, hungry fighter. I like the way she fights, especially for the women's division. The 135 has 0 comer-uppers. GDR already hasn't played ball with me more than once where she's effed up my division. I don't want her to win this if I'm Dana.
Right.
So I think this is a setup fight in a way for Ladd. I think GDR has 0 ground game, even though she has good takedown defense. Holly didn't even try to take her down once. Like, she's going in against fights against people that aren't really takedown heavy. Chris Cyborg went and tried to take her down, and then she handedly lost to an old, Amanda Nunes 3 years ago or something. That Amanda Nunes is of equivalent, but I actually think this Aspen Ladd is better than that Amanda Nunes was. Not compared to Amanda Nunes now. She is the GOAT of the 135, but better than that Amanda Nunes was. That's how much better she's gotten over time, in my opinion. I think Ladd can do this. I do think the cardio, it's going to be the hardest problem, but I think it's going to be the hardest problem for both women. And I think both women knowing that and looking for the finish too early is going to blow both their wads. And this is going to go from a super exciting fight to a super boring fight. It could go. I only see it winning by decision. I don't see either lady getting the finish. So I think it goes all 5 rounds. And if it's dirty, I got Ladd decision. GDR has never been, I've never been hyped on her.
Ever. Never. She burned us.
I only think she can beat somebody striking, and every time Holly goes against somebody who's just a striker, she kind of loses, and almost that she knew the GDR fight went so similar that when she was going to fight Megan Anderson, what do we see Holly do for the first time in her career? Takedown. So I kind of see Ladd doing that kind of same game plan to GDR.
I think you are right, and that's what I'm saying.
Kick,
I see this going
GDR single leg with the kick, grabbing it, taking her down. I think she grabs a foot, pushes her forward. Ladd has tons of power for this division. She's like a bull.
I agree with that. Also with Ladd, when I feel like she closes a distance where GDR can capitalize, is that she comes in very straightforward and telegraphed, where it's not a good takedown. She reaches at times, or will even eat a shot to just get those double underhooks to get you to the ground, where I feel like that wizard that GDR has is specifically going to work well in this fight. I like what you're saying. It goes one of two ways. It's on the ground for Ladd, or it's GDR standing, but I see a finish either way.
I think GDR's legs are super dangerous. Sure. I think striking, they could be even now. I think Ladd's striking's gotten a lot better.
Oh, I give the striking handedly to GDR, but either way, that's a fun one to be playing. Favorite for you there. I got the underdog on DraftKings. You're going to end up paying $8,900 for the minus 155 favorite Aspen Ladd against the plus 125 underdog. $7,300 for Jeraine Dirandame.
You always love the Iron Lady.
I know. She's got good striking. She knocked out a man.
That doesn't mean shit to me.
True.
There's
I feel like
there's so many dudes that can get friggin' knocked out.
Raquel Pennington will knock out a man.
Yeah, I think Amanda Nunes will knock out 10 men in a row.
True. True.
I don't know. Holly Holm will knock out a man. I think Betch Kohea could knock out a man.
I gotta give it to you. Yes, you're right.
I just think anyone. I know how hard I can punch that punching bag. If I hit somebody right, I just think it sucks.
Everyone's got a button.
Yeah, it's like your jaw can only take so much movement. Your temple can only take so much pressure.
It's a great point. So I like GDR for a lot of other reasons.
Do you like that she cheated to win the fight with Holly?
If you cheating and that bet cashes, I'm okay with that.
No, but I mean, it's not skill.
Oh.
It's like that they let you get away with that they might, this new UFC that we're in, the new era, not only are we seeing 10-6 rounds, 10-7 rounds, we might see a point taken right away, especially because everyone's going to be talking about that beforehand. So, I don't know. I just think the Ladd is a UFC push to me. I just see it clear as day. But we do know the UFC pushes people too fast. #Darren Till. Rest in peace, Darren Till.
So
they could go back and forth, but every fight, I don't feel good about this card.
I
would
agree.
say, don't go with me on this card.
I agree.
But on my cards, if I have a good night, I'm going to be making so much money because I got weird picks.
Tons of underdogs, but they're all very, very close and tight. If you want to stick around, we're going to get into our recap the morning after, a whole couple days later. That's how bad of a bender we had for that 239 type of a pay-per-view card, star-studded event. Oh man, the fun we had watching that fight. We took a little bit of a break here at Lab B, ended up taking a trip across the country to visit some family and stuff. So it's the holidays. What are you going to do? Ended up catching this over on the West Coast, and man, was it nice to get it done at 10:30 at night. 10 at night. We had time to go out and keep celebrating the win for, my boy, JBJ, always coming through.
Huh.
But that was controversial, to say the least. Do we want to get into the news before we get into the card? Do we want to go over Twitterverse stuff? There's been a lot of news.
Let's talk about the card, and we'll just finish it off with Twitterverse, which is so different, but why not?
Which is so blah by this point.
Yeah, so we can talk about things that I'm going to put in a couple of the fights into the
spectrogram over here.
Yeah, and we don't need to talk about the first fight of the night. Whatever. We'll just fly through it. But I think we can talk about
well, there was key points. It was Avila Kinsey decision. Gross. I didn't like either one of them moving too far forward. I liked Avila a lot. She was my crown. That didn't work out. Yeah. So that's what you take away from that one. Then we had the linchpin for Emmanuel here. Woo! What a gross linchpin. Nardi.
I feel like I tried to tell you. I re-listened to the show and I was like, I don't know. I kind of like the, But then you were so high on Nardiev. I was like, I put him on too many cards because
I'm sorry.
Not as many because I still listen to myself, but you were so high on it and you have good advice. This was one of your worst picks ever.
Oh, he got 27 points on DraftKings.
One of your worst picks ever for it to be a linchpin.
I know
that would suck because that means you put him on the most of your cards. And how do you over? That's why I'm surprised that you made money still.
I told myself as well. Put him on 85% of my cards. I feel like I put him on 85. So I still had a lot of other good picks. I cashed. I didn't get first, but I doubled my DraftKings night as far. And I had Nardiev. That's how. If I would have had anyone else, I would have been in first place in a lot of spots. Especially with some of them underdog picks. But yeah, this one was one that, my bad. When them hips start shaking, I can't see straight. And, Ren counter in there. Ended up using that wrestling to really just outsize Nardiev. Nardiev was throwing tons of body kicks. Good knee that a lot of other guys wouldn't have eaten that knee.
He looked like garbage.
You didn't see that knee, though?
Nardiev did not look good anywhere in there.
Oh, I thought
I
rewatched
of the fight, 30 seconds of 15 minutes or whatever, it was not a good showing. I can't take anything good from that for him.
Oh, I thought he had good striking. I just thought Ren counter he ate every single shot, ate it all.
It was not his striking you were high on going into it.
It was his wrestling.
Hips.
His wrestling hips.
His striking, it was like, to be the one good strike you land doesn't make it good striking.
Well, and I think also I think
Nardiev, the Chronicles of Nardiev are bleak.
It's a short story. But what also I think swayed me is Perceres was a 155er up at 70 and Nardiev looked huge. Against a true 170-pounder, Ren counter, monster. Ren counter was a monster in there compared to Nardiev. On to Shabazian defeating Jack Marshman in a submission round number 1. You were high on Shabazian here. I still liked him a lot, but having to pay up so hard for Nardiev, I ended up putting Shabazian on still a good amount. He ended up being a big player because he showed out. As far as Marshman, it's probably time for Marshman to get on out of here. Unfortunately, he retired from the military as well, so he's gonna probably be getting swooped up by Bellator or he's got a fight career outside of the UFC, but it is outside of the UFC.
It should be. As good as Shabazian looked, it's still against Jack Marshman. Right.
He's just never been the highest caliber guy in there.
The best thing for Jack Marshman is sometimes I get him confused with Jack Hermanson. That's the best thing he has going for him. Sometimes when I'm like gonna pick, I'm like just looking over names on who's gonna be on a card. I'm like, ooh, Jack Hermanson in my head, and then I'm like, get here, and I'm like, oh, it's Jack Marshman. Not as exciting, but
you can bet against him.
I still like Shabazian a ton going forward, and I'm still gonna be high on that.
Totally agreed with that.
Because I saw Edmund back there too. Head movement. He didn't even have to tell him.
No.
He was like, hey.
Oh.
Hey.
Oh, this guy's doing a good job.
He's like, you guys should have seen it when Ronda Rousey was knocking out Shabazian in the gym.
That lady not got anybody there. So, fun stuff there. Definitely a guy to watch out for at 185 pounds. Young, up-and-coming Shabazian. On to the bantamweights, 135 pounds, we had Yadong Song coming in against Alejandro Perez. We were both picking him more in a decision. I actually thought Yadong was going to look good with his output. I didn't expect him to get that clear-cut of a finish.
I think I was a little more on Perez on the show, and this is definitely one that I fell over on Song before fight night started.
I agree. I needed somebody, and Dong Song was right in that like 8'5", 8'4" range, and I was like, I see him being one-sided with the takedowns even in this one. But man, that karate style, it was a naked kick by Perez. It was a misstep by Perez. I mean, look back at it. He threw an inside kick without blocking it, and Song saw it. And he's an alpha male guy. We were just touting off about them recently, about the good guys. But Song's definitely getting a Josh Emmett type of training partner in there who's fighting this upcoming weekend. But either way, Song looking like a world beater in there. A lot of guys haven't been able to do that to Perez. He's had a fairly sturdy chin, been knocked down before, but never clean out. And man, was he clean out. I would want to say this was the hardest knockout of the night, but we all know what's coming. We all know what's coming. Woo! But I did have Song on a lot of spots, and he saved him and Shabazian I had on a lot of spots because I liked our young man type of bet that we were having as far as DraftKings. And for the most part, most of the young men showed out. Most of them showed out.
Yeah. Ren Contour's still like a young guy, I think.
He is.
Just has bad skin.
Yeah. He's Native American. I don't know what that means, but he had a big reservation speech after it, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's his nickname, something like that.
The Black Eagle.
Yeah.
Or the Black Hawk, something like that.
Something that makes me think Native American. It was like something very specific. I forget what it is.
He still lived on the res for a while, so that's hardcore. Good for him.
Whatever, Montano.
So, anything left with Song and Perez? What do you do with Perez?
I think he's fine.
Yeah, he fights anybody.
He's still a good grinding fighter. I think Song's good. We're going to look back at it, and it's going to be like, oh, you lost to Yadong Song when he was making his run.
Definitely agreed. Definitely that alpha male coming in to contention there. Moving on to 115 pounds. One of the other ones I ended up getting wrong on the night because I only went 9 of 12. 3 in all I ended up getting wrong. You as well. That's a fairly good night if you're asking me.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad night.
On a night
I did
of
a little
upsets,
more than breaking even. I just really... Some of the things that went off weren't great. And the first hurt so far was definitely... Because even without you saying it, I still would have gone Nardiev. And I only had him decision. I didn't go heavy, but he was the first, like...
Ouch.
Yeah, where it took out some of my cards right away. Yeah, and then I had Gedalia here.
You did have Gedalia. I had Marcos. Gedalia ended up going over to that Frankie Edgar gym and has been up in New Jersey for this last fight camp. Marcos going in there, and I thought it was going to be much more wrestling-centric. They just both stood in front of each other and actually got boozed by the end of the third round. Neither one was really pulling the trigger. I was hoping the gas tank was really going to play a role for Gedalia, and it was going to really hurt her in that third round, but Marcos didn't move forward with punches. The few takedowns that she got shucked off of, she completely scared her off, and it just turned them into looking at each other. I didn't like what I saw from either lady here.
No, I don't even need to talk about it.
Exactly. It was definitely a gross one in there. Moving on to the short notice replacement, we had Marlon Chito Vera coming in against debut in Hernandez. Submission round number 2. Chito Vera. It was... Did we even have time to get it out because we got our show out so early?
I think I do have one for Cheeto.
Against Hernandez in here. I was actually surprised with Hernandez. He had nothing to lose in here. Was winning some exchanges against Vera in there and actually took him down twice in there. Good takedowns. Chito was throwing all sorts of triangles, crazy stuff up there. That's why we like him, because even off of his back, Chito Vera is one of those guys that ends up being able to finish off of his back. He's always throwing up strikes, heel hooks, all sorts of crazy stuff. So
I like Cheeto a ton. I just felt like everyone already expected it to kind of go that way.
Agreed.
So it's like Cheeto went in there and kind of did what his experience said he should do.
Totally agreed in there.
But he was way more worth the normal Cheeto money. Even though it was super pricey.
He was 8,700. But again, Martinez or Hernandez didn't lose anything for me in there. He was supposed to lose and actually gave a better showing of himself than I thought. So, Cheeto, that takedown defense that's going to start to be a problem once they're really able to stop those submissions. Because it was a flying knee that started off the submission for Cheeto in that. So, that's what we take away from that one. At 145 pounds, we had AAA Alan Arnold, Almighty, coming in against Gil Melendez, El Nino in there. Looked like it was a storm that has passed. It has been out to sea for a while. It's got no strength, no power. The cardio's not there. I mean, the wrestling that Gil Melendez used to lean on just isn't there against these young guys. Again, it was a part of that young guy bet. Arnold Allen broke his own records by far. Previously only striking the most in a fight, I believe 55 strikes. He went like 158 strikes this fight over Melendez. But again, this is more of a fade on Melendez than Arnold looking like an absolute monster in there. Because he isn't. He's not. I think that against a level opponent, Allen has still got growing to do. He's a young man, getting a lot of experience, and he put in 3 good rounds, so it's good that you can see he puts in that type of output. But
it's good, but it's embarrassing.
Agreed.
That nothing against Gil Melendez, but he should have gotten on
Finished
out of
him.
here.
Finished him.
I thought it was going to be a finish.
Agreed.
It was good. The output was so high, and but somewhere the age should have eked out the experience because it's like the octagon age on Melendez is so extremely old.
Yep, 100%. So you can't take much away from that for Allen. Like, it's not that big of a win, if anything.
It's no Shabazian.
There it is.
Or Rinconter, for that matter.
For truth. On to 170 pounds, we had Michael Chiesa coming in against Diego Sanchez. I mean, I actually hated a lot of what I saw in there from Chiesa. One of the few texts I sent you throughout the night was like, I'm been against Chiesa. It's that rent counter syndrome. Diego Sanchez looked tiny in there. Chiesa looked big.
That's exactly what I think too. Size won him that fight.
100%. It was not necessarily skill because Diego Sanchez didn't get submitted in there. Did a little oil checking in there if you've listened to any of there. Seen the photo? It's a full thumb. He's gouging. Like I said, he's gouging the anus in there.
You ain't trying. You ain't trying to rape someone in the octagon.
So, Chiesa, the fact that it was a decision doesn't speak well for me as far as the striking. I didn't see anything I liked. And once he gets one of these Kamaru Usman type of 170-pounders, one of these big guys, even round counter for that matter, round counter against Chiesa, give me that fight.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a really interesting fight.
I got rank counter in that fight, honestly.
I didn't really love what I seen from Chiesa, but I really, looking back, I didn't go heavy Diego Sanchez really anywhere. But this is one of the ones that I should have gotten right. I never picked Diego Sanchez in my life because he's one of those guys that should have gotten on out of there. 100%. It just really shows my hate for Chiesa.
Right.
And I think he's so one-dimensional, and it's not even one-dimensional. That's the best of them. That's kind of why I'm falling off of him. And I just thought really what we saw of Sanchez stifling jiu-jitsu like that in the past, I thought it would be enough. This one's kind of like a dirty one to me. It wouldn't have felt good either way. So it was more an emotional pick. But Chiesa, I will say, thank you for getting rid of that awful hair. Thank you for getting rid of that awful hair. That's the one thing I remember about that fight.
That is the best thing that came out of that fight, for sure. At 205 pounds, we had Jan Blachowicz coming in against Luke Rockhold, TKO round number 2. And we have the Blachowicz Whisperer in the motherfucking house.
I know everything about Jan.
Everything about Jan Blachowicz.
I never get Jan wrong.
Well, other than that Santos fight.
Did I have Jan in that?
You had Jan in that. I had Santos in that. But it's every other time you've got, you're on Jan. And he's just been showing out. Luke Rockhold absolutely gassed after that first round. Jan was putting in those body kicks. Jan was doing good wrestling.
It wasn't that he gassed. He looked garbage everywhere.
Yep.
He didn't do... Jan picked him apart the whole first round.
The end of the first round, head kick almost finished it.
Yeah.
At the bell.
He was already wobbly.
Yep.
And then when he did finish it, his jaw looked like a mouthpiece.
It broke, literally.
But it looked like his mouthpiece was pushed
pushed
over
out?
his cheek.
Yeah.
But it was his jaw. It was and then if you see when he's sitting on the ground, his coaches are talking to him and the doctor's checking him everything, he is all wide mouth like He can't even.
He can't talk. Yeah, he's like, my mouth's fucked.
Oh
yeah.
my God.
Look at those X-rays. I'll get him out there once I ended up finding out that he's broken.
What I said before, and what I will say again. Luke Rockhold should get on out of here.
The truth. You're on. Maybe
I want to be high on Jan here, and I know he deserves the next shot against John. That's what this was all setting up. Luke Rockhold, the idea that his ego even thought he was ready for that, like, ugh. And people were saying, that's the scariest guy for John to fight, Luke Rockhold. What? So this was an awful fight for Luke Rockhold, but... Yeah, so I can't get really high on Jan because I have so little faith in Luke.
But Jan doesn't get the next title shot.
He doesn't?
Does he or doesn't he?
Yeah, I think he does.
I think he should as well.
I think he should.
But I don't know if he does necessarily. Rockhold.
John Jones has a long time to heal, one. But two, I think he's hand-selecting his fights right now. I don't know if he wants to go against a guy like Jan.
I agree with that. That's why he called out who he called out, which we'll get there. Okay. We will get there. Because, again, what's the tail of the tape on that one is get on out of here, Luke Rockhold. Yeah. Stay with your polo contract. Go be a model. You got that in your back pocket, you son of a bitch. So, moving on to the welterweight division, we had Puesta. That came through. If you want plus money, if you're trying to make bets out there, you're going to be getting that plus money on Jorge Masvidal. We're telling you. Ben Askren, one-dimensional fighter. He's trying to get that takedown. I thought it was going to be in the third round because I thought Masvidal would be able to fight off the submission up until that point and to wherever he needed to. But if you have been living under a rock and you missed it, it took all of 5 seconds. There ain't no slapping hands. We ain't slapping hands. I'm going to throw a knee right at your face and you're going to go, night. Absolute, one of the most devastating knockouts. And that was one of those knockouts where he was hanging out with Joe Rogan in that DMT stage. He was seeing all sorts of symbols out there. It was devastating. Have you ever seen a quicker knockout?
Obviously not.
I know you ain't. And I don't think that was 5 seconds. It was 3. But they just, because the ref, that's when he got in there.
Here we go.
Woo!
Hands up against the fence like KK. And then... The best part about the knockout to me, which I think this is for soccer or football fans, either or, when he actually, if you ever watch a guy put down a tee, or even he's gonna kick a ball into a goal, he usually sets the ball down, and then he lines it up, he backs up, and then he steps a few to the left or a few to the right, depending on what side he's gonna kick it. If you actually watch Jorge come in for that, he literally makes a J shape. He comes in just like he's about to kick a field goal. It is so planned, and he was going to be reckless regardless, but I'm sure you watched it in interviews afterwards as well, but I do love that Jorge was kind of I knew he couldn't improvise. Right. And if you watch it in slow motion, the second he even sees Jorge start to move, he literally goes in for the takedown. His body, his muscle memory, that's the only thing it could do. And George, from running into him psychology-wise in the hotel, he said, I knew he wouldn't be able to. I just watched him on the fly in person a few times that I knew just doing something wacky like that
Mikey Brown has also released footage showing him practicing that knee. That specific switch knee. Specifically that switch knee. Ben Askren, again, that Lawler fight was weird. It was absolutely weird, but there is ways to beat Ben Askren. How do you feel about the follow-up shots? And Masvidal...
I don't mind it at all. I don't mind it at all. Why is it up to... Masvidal's the first fighter in the history that it's up to him to stop the fight? That doesn't even make sense to me.
It's been happening as of late. The refs really need to get in there. But then all of the post-fight press stuff, Masvidal becoming a megastar in there. We already knew it. He used to be our number one. He used to be our original. And he's finally showing through because those skills are finally coming together for him. But that was just... Where do you go with Masvidal next? Do you give him the title? Colby Covington's got a bout now with Lawler. What do you do with Jorge here?
Everybody's like, Jorge's in the zone. Jorge's in the zone. Jorge's in the zone. Ugh. I wish I would have stuck with Jorge in this just because Ben Askren, super one-dimensional, and just how I'm picking it apart here. And he also isn't, I don't know if he was UFC caliber or not, but really the number one thing about Ben Askren that is a never go against a guy who unretires, or never bet on a guy who unretires. Never, ever, ever. So Jorge Masvidal, I like, but I think everyone's going to jump onto the Jorge Masvidal bandwagon, and everyone's going to think, oh, Jorge's unbeatable, but I'm going to remind you that he went against a push too hard Darren Till and a retired fighter. Those are his last 2 fights that everyone's like, oh my gosh, it's time to get high on Jorge. I don't know yet. I think there's guys at the top that I don't know yet. I don't know he's not going to fight Colby. And so I got to think if he's training with Colby, he knows Usman's style pretty well.
He is the only way he fights Colby's for the belt. But they've already come to terms with that years ago. They're like, the only way they fight each other is for that strap. And I think that that's fair game. Because you both have been training, you both knew, and you want that. You're like, no.
Am I just going to sit out and ruin 2 years of my career because it just happens to be the same time as yours?
No, it's just, that's fate at that point in time.
I love Jorge. I just, I don't know. It's still weird to me. It's still too fast. How much do you learn in 5 seconds? It was perfectly placed. It was awesome. I love how wacky he is. I love how game bred he is. And I think that's how he'll always be. I don't think he'll ever be a champion, but I love Jorge. And Ben, get on out of here.
Time to get on out of here, man. Get on out of here.
But you know what? You said it was the worst knockout of the night. It was the fastest knockout of the night, but I'd rather be Ben Askren all day than Luke Rockhold today.
Oh, good point. Ben Askren's talking.
Wasn't even hurt at all. He was in, which was really stand up, and I even think Ben Askren probably has more fans now than he did before the fight. Being a shit talker.
Yeah, he came Monday morning on that Hawani show, just like, whatever. I'm not gonna keep that. Yeah. Stop. Whatever. It is what it is, and that's the mentality of a true competitor in there. Somebody who's always got a shot in there, because you got to make him seize up. But
didn't the line get closer by the time the fight started?
It started to a bit. I ended up putting out a couple bets on there. I was hitting them at 205, at plus 205. I was in them at plus 195. I was making money on Jorge Masvidal. Woo! Woo! It was a fun night of underdog.
I just think Jorge's so smart. I think he says everything right. He right now, if there is perfection in a UFC well-roundedness game, even on the mic, it's Jorge Masvidal. I loved it. I love how he's just cold as fuck.
Hell yeah.
He don't even, whatever. So, immediately, why is it up to me to stop punching? Why is it up to me,
Yep. That's why we got a ref.
Yeah.
That's why we got a ref. On to the co-main event.
And he's like, if I see him in the street, I'm going to do it again.
Definitely love all of that coming from it. Moving on to 135 pounds, we had a co-main event with Amanda Nunes coming in against Holly Holm. And Holly, really, being tentative as always, but getting set up, getting caught on a single leg and kicked to Kingdom Come. Nunes coming out and saying that Masvidal inspired her to try to get the finish. She made a step. I feel like Nunes came out and said that Holly went to their plan B immediately, so everything was out the door, and she just saw the kick and threw it, and there it was. First finish for Holly Holm. She's only lost decision. First time she's ever been knocked out. Amanda Nunes, the GOAT. There's no way. If the and or but's the only champion she had never beaten, she finished in the first round.
Yeah.
The GOAT. Who else? Gabby Garcia is the only lady that she hasn't beat.
What's Gabby Garcia a champion of?
Resin, 265 pounds.
Oh, yeah, they can't. And she had never beat JJ, and she never beat Rose, and she never beat...
together, tag team. Rose JJ against Amanda Nunes.
There's a lot of champions she hasn't beat.
Right. But I feel like that was one of the talking points, was Holly Holm being the only champion. But now...
Of UFC champion?
A UFC champion.
In the weight classes that she holds the belt, only champion she
Only. So now she's finished anyone who's ever held the belt. She's finished them all. Yeah. Unbelievable record. What do you take away from Nunes? Where does she go from here?
Wherever she wants. Wherever she wants. She wants to defend her 145, which she's already solidified as the GOAT, but going back up and defending the 145, and being able to be she's the only person that's gone between both their things and defended both titles still. Like, we haven't seen Cejudo go back down. So this is really impressive to me. And a woman like Holly, of her caliber, to take her out by her own weapon, like, you pick the weapon. And then she finished her that way. She said Holly went in with a totally different style than she'd ever see Holly do before. Yep. It made her dig a little deeper into her repertoire, but she had that. Nunes is well-rounded. She's awesome. And I think that... she took out it wasn't the way anyone saw it going down. No one saw a head kick finish by Nunes. So this was a pretty shocking part of the night. Like, I would have, if you would have told me this goes down with Masvidal or this goes down with Nunes and Holly, I would have been like, oh, it's easy to see that Masvidal outcome with Ben Askren. Right. Easy. Even Askren's like, we planned on knees. That's easy to see. Seeing this finish for Nunes and Holm, never.
I totally agree.
I love it. I love Nunes. And she made more money than every other fighter on the card.
Highest paid fighter of the entire night.
I guess on a John Jones card, that's real money.
Yeah, she's got to be getting pay-per-view shares, but she's held the belt.
I was wondering, do you get more shares if you hold 2 belts?
You're beating the champ. Does that also? No. It's just interesting. I know John Jones used to be the highest paid.
And she got the $50,000 for knockout, one of the knockouts of the night, I think.
Right.
Or performance of the night or something.
So, good for her in that. So, anybody for her. Holly Holm's in that boat as well. She can fight anybody, and she's just
whatever. I don't even want to say get on out of here because it's the women's 135, and Holly Holm still has
and 145 for Holly Holm.
There's still fights for her to win in there.
Exactly. At light heavyweight, we have the main event, a 5-rounder. Ended up going all 5. This was one of those that I didn't see going all 5. I don't think a lot of people saw going all 5. It was going to be a finish for either guy. But John Jones ended up defending his belt in his most controversial bout of all time. I don't want to say his hardest because I think Gustafsson still beat up John Jones more than Thiago did. But Thiago definitely showed the game plan, which we have a mutual friend here that has always said, you got to kick that John Jones skinny legs.
Yeah.
You got to kick them legs. And Thiago Santos did that. On one leg, because he has since then torn his ACL, MCL, PCL, TCL, DCL, all of the LCLs.
Meniscus.
He didn't have no DMT down there.
He tore everything in his knee, that his knee was just
hanging there.
It could have just...
Well, we saw the replay live action.
I didn't. I turned.
You saw all of a sudden, middle of his shin, back up to his leg, and he threw that leg still.
But then he kept throwing it. It was his pivot leg on one of his head kick, and he kept throwing it. It was insane.
It was just a ball and chain mace. It was just a foot flying through the air, essentially, but...
If you look at a fight metrics, John Jones won this fight. If you look at power of ring control and everything else, Thiago Santos won this fight. This was a super close fight. The only way that John's kept his belt is because it was his belt to begin with. That is the only reason. I think it's this unsaid rule that I don't really love. I think if you win the fight, you should win the fight. That's it. But I hate them taking a title from a champ on something controversial, and I wouldn't want that for Thiago Santos. I am interested in a healthy Thiago Santos fighting John Jones. I don't think we ever get to see that. John Jones is never fighting Thiago Santos again.
Never fought a rematch.
He's an old man, and it showed in this fight. He is in a young man's... I think John Jones has very dangerous route up ahead. But not only with this being the key to taking
the blueprint.
It's the starts. It's at least all the structural. You don't have the windows up yet. There's no curtains picked out. But you got the structure down. And so if you're a guy with a little more height, so you also have a reach advantage that Thiago didn't. Gosh, he just looked good everywhere. Yep. I don't know if this is also interesting. One of the first fights Jones has tested clean since his OSP fight.
I'd agree. But what you're saying with Jones, I think that he doesn't have that hard of a bout because he's now calling out Dominic Reyes, who lost essentially to Ozdemir in there, who he got out of there.
Of the people that we've seen coming up that used to be hype trains at 205, he's the easiest one.
All of a sudden. And John Jones is like, I'm going to fight this guy and this guy next.
I don't think he wants to fight Anthony Smith again. I don't think he wants to fight Santos. I think Johnny Walker all of a sudden looks a little... finicky right now.
If Luke Rockhold would have won, he would have been like, after
Luke
him.
Rockhold, easy.
Yep, after him.
He didn't call out Jan.
I totally agree. I don't think that Santos... But Santos has a long recovery. If you ever, I mean, I don't think you can tear everything and ever be the same.
I would say maybe not in the 90s or 2000, but something weird's with there. They'll put some stem cells
They'll put
in
them
there.
zombie ligaments.
He'll have a second leg growing out of the same spot. I thought Thiago looked awesome.
Good.
It was it was the most exciting Jon Jones fight in a bit.
What rounds did you give to who? Because
oh my gosh, I can't even remember now.
I gave the first and the fifth to Thiago Santos. I gave 2, 3, and 4 to Jon Jones.
When did
Everyone says it's a second round. Everyone says pretty much that Santos won the first and the fifth as well, which I agree. I think that it's that
easy
second
first
round.
and fifth.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the second, so I say he won the second.
I don't even remember anymore. I just I wasn't. Yeah, I know Thiago Santos is that good. I just think there's so many chinks in the armor of this perfect
he is human.
Fighter.
He does bleed.
Yeah, and against a guy like Thiago that usually goes out and sloppy AF, just forward moving AF, he was so. Gosh, I think Thiago Santos had everything to win from this, and Jon Jones had everything to lose, and it kind of happened that way. I don't think. And Jon Jones said something that I think is really telling in the octagon after the fight, because he knew that shit was sketchy. He said, "I think he made me look bad in there." That's what he said in the octagon. So, yeah, he did. He did make you look really bad in there.
Definitely a fun one. Fun fight card. If you stuck around this long, thank you very much. It was a fun one. It was a long one.
We're not going to Twitterverse. We have nothing to add. This is already long enough.
This is long enough. We're going to be back at you with the morning after. Then we got another fight card to break down. We're going to be back on schedule. Life is going to get back on the right track. Anything left for the beautiful people in there?
Thanks for staying with. If you stayed this long, you crazy as hell. But we'll see you again Sunday. We'll see you again Sunday. Bye-bye.
Let me